And to the angel of the church in Laodicea write, I know your works. They are neither cold nor hot. I wish that you were cold or hot. So because you are lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I am about to spit you out of my mouth. There is a very old document, two documents actually, one called the Way of Truth, and the other one called the Way of Opinion, written by Parmenides. One we have in in good form, the other one we have only a fragment. And in this first document, Parmenides, a youthful philosopher, is taken by a golden carriage drawn by 4 white mares up into heaven. And he finds himself in the heavenly places, and he finds himself before the goddess, who is stretched out on a chaise longue, like a sort of 1930s actress. And she begins to tell him that, in fact, those mortals down on earth are wrong. That in the universe, actually, nothing happens. The universe is round, it is perfectly dark, it is absolutely full. Nothing can be put in, nothing can be taken out. In fact, it is inert. Time? There is no time. Movement? There is no movement, because there is no void into which the plenitude can flow. But those mortals, she says, they have said that there is light and the void, and therefore live this life of illusion, when by certainty we can know that in fact nothing happens. And so it is the word of these mortals that creates the illusory reality that we all know, which stands in great contrast to what we think we know. Now, in the book of Genesis, it is the Spirit of God which hovers over the deep, which is formless and void. At the center of the universe, a small thing. At the center of the universe, a set of baby drapes. Nothing particular, nothing colorful, nothing beautiful, formless and void, tohu vabohu. And God speaks. And God says, let there be light. And God draws from what is formless and void. He draws out the yin and the yang. He draws out all of the creatures and all of the light and the darkness and the depths and the wet and the dry. All the things that we know subsist in the fact that he has said it. And so it's an interesting parallel that the God of the Old Testament and the mortals of Parmenides' vision both have this sense that we live in a world which is drawn out into its extreme points of color and beauty, of height and depth, on the basis of the Word. The angel of the church in Laodicea is instructed to criticize the members of that church because they are lukewarm. They are neither hot or cold. And we have at our center some suspicion that in fact the lowest common denominator in the universe is nothing. That in fact when we breathe our last, our substance is in fact very little. That everything that we love about life, everything which is rich and full, in some strange ways requires teachers to pass it on. It's no longer even embedded in our genes. It is this world which is made up of words. I have other people's words inside of myself. I have music written by other people inside of myself. So much of my language is language that has been created by other people. It's almost as if we are at the intersection of a Venn diagram. And what is us, and what belongs to you, are nonetheless somehow shared and form together this thing that we call life. And we might say, well, that makes us feel small. Or it makes us feel that, in fact, that the universe is not real. That, in fact, there are not at the center of life's dramas hard, stony things, atoms, if you like, but that, in fact, it is all story. Well, it is all story. And it is all a narration. And life is something which is set up by God's Word, and creation by God's Word. It is story. And the story of what we do in our churches as men and women of faith, as we create liturgies, we draw out the red and the green and the blue. We draw out the high and the low. We draw things out in their beauty. And if we give up on the cheekiness of doing that, and if we allow ourselves to be dragged back to the idea that, in fact, at the base of everything there is very little, a little iron bar, a set of beige drapes, something murky, something ghostly, we need to agree with the goddess, yes, that is the default position in the universe until a word is spoken and something new comes into shape. That is the default position. Very little, if not nothing, until God speaks, and from his word issue waterfalls, and lakes, and people, and the Yellowstone cutthroat trout, and all those other things that he has created, which issue forth from his word. And we, as men and women of faith, create community. We draw in men and women who had had nothing to do with each other in the outside world, where rich and poor sit shoulder to shoulder, cheek to jowl, in the same community and are part of the same reality. And we create realities by the words that we speak, words of love, words of acceptance, words of inclusion. Something emerges from those words which has never been seen before. And in that, we do our work as co-creators with God, who calls into being the things that are not. And so when we ponder, as Larry and I do now in the last trimester of our lives, what we've done for the last few years, and was it all worth it, and where will we end up, and how will we end up doing things, and maybe life really is just ashes and rock and a few bits of stuff confected together. There was that wonderful story by Kurt Vonnegut. I think it was Welcome to the Monkey House. I think it appears in there, where there is this strange Caribbean cult of Bokonon. And the creation epic of the cult of Bokonon was, there was mud. And God put the mud together and made a man. And the man sat up and looked about him and looked at all the mud that had not been made a man and said to himself, lucky mud. And we are lucky mud. Energized, created, set on our feet by something as ephemeral as a word. And the love that we live, the liturgy that we do, the communities that we build, are based on those same ephemeral acts. Every year my mom and dad would bring out the canvas tent at the beginning of the summer, and it would have sat in the basement and smelled a little bit of wet canvas left a bit too long, and it would be stretched out on the lawn to dry up. And there it was in 2 dimensions, just canvas. That's all it was, canvas lying flat on the lawn. Until someone sets it down on a spot and takes the poles and lofts it up. And out of that flat, lifeless thing emerges another dimension. A place in which men and women can live. That is the nature of the relationships that we build. That is the relationship of the communities we found. That is the nature of the lives that we lead.